Good morning and welcome to Phoenix Talks. This is the fourth Phoenix Talks we've hosted this week, and we're so pleased to have you with us here today. Today's event is part of what we call the common theme on our campus. The common theme this year is entitled Engaging in Public Life. The common theme is a year-long program to help our campus as well as our community to learn and think together as an institution. There are numerous events planned around the common theme of engaging in public life, and today and this week's programming is a part of that. I'd like to call out and recognize Dr. Erin Weinshank in the back, if you wouldn't mind standing up, Erin. Thank you. A round of applause for Erin. Dr. Weinshank actually submitted this year's common theme to the Campus Common Theme Committee, and it was selected as the year-long topic. And so he's been instrumental in helping to provide some of this programming for us. We modeled this week's events after TED Talks. Hopefully you're familiar with TED Talks, but we wanted to bring it more to a community level, a little bit more of an intimate level. We wanted to hear from community members in our region, and our speakers today are some of the most highly regarded speakers and leaders in our community. You'll get to know them a little bit better. They are all working very hard to make this a better place. They're all passionate about what they do, and we're pleased to have all of you with us here today. We want to hear from you about ideas and values that you have and why engaging in public service is important, and that's really what our audience is here to do today. The format will be as follows. We'll go ahead and ask each guest to introduce themselves and speak for about 10 minutes, telling us a little introduction about yourself and why you think it's valuable to work in public service. And then we'll hear from each one of you. We'll kind of go down the line, and then we'll open it up for some Q&A. And Erin will moderate the Q&A for us kind of at the close of the hour today is what we'll do. Our guests today, first of all, to my far right, we have Dan Lindstrom. Dan is a city planner for Green Bay. And in the middle, we have Cheryl Renier-Wigg. Renier-Wigg, thank you, Renier-Wigg. Cheryl is a neighborhood development supervisor, so we'll learn a little bit more about her role as well today. And then to my immediate right, we have Mayor Schmitt as well joining us today too. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and start. Maybe Dan, if you want to begin. And I also know, Mayor, that you have a tight schedule today and may have to leave a few minutes early is my understanding. So we'll take you for as long as we can. So Dan, if you want to go ahead and begin, and thank you all for joining us today.
I think I'm going to start with following the proper procedures of mayoral etiquette. So I'm actually going to default to the mayor to start off here first.
Thanks, Dan. I'll grab this. Is this on? Well, this is great to be here. And you heard in the introduction, you're going to hear from three speakers who are passionate about their job. And I will tell you that is one word that really fits me. I am passionate about my job. And you know, I always wanted a job that I would enjoy. I did. Since I was a little kid, I enjoy having fun. I've always enjoyed maybe making a little bit of money, and never really knew what that was going to be. I grew up in Two Rivers, and what I did for fun and enjoyment was I would go, probably in 6th grade, I would go to auctions. In Two Rivers household auctions. Somebody would die, and they, instead of having a rummage sale, they'd have an auction. And at the end of the auction, they always auction off stuff like 50 cents for this box. And you don't know what was in the box, or $1 for this box. And I'd always buy it, go in there, and there'd be, you know, an iron or a hat or a purse. And I'd go around the neighborhood and sell it for more than what was in the box. And that was very, very enjoyable for me. And I think that has a little bit to do with my entrepreneurial spirit as well. So that, I like telling that story because that's something kids can still do today. It's just a great way of making money and a little bit of risk with buying because you don't know what's in the box, but there's usually enough in there. And with 10 brothers and sisters and a whole bunch of cousins, I could usually at least recoup my expenses and make a little money on top of that. So I went to school at Roncalli High School in Manitowoc. Enjoyed it there. I had a good year there. For those of you who know me, I am not an A student. I'm a good B student because I kind of did both. I went there. I went to school for the social aspect as well as the academic, and then went to school at St. Norbert College. That was good to me. I enjoyed school there very much. Again, a decent student. Didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to have some fun. I was high school president in high school, and junior class president, and then in college at St. Norbert, we elected 4 students and 4 faculty members, and that was called Student Life, and I did that. I thought, well, that's fun, but, you know, I just needed to do something where I was going to enjoy what I do, and I believe in having a whole lot of fun in life. I like parties, I like people, and I'll overuse the word enjoy, but I just do. I believe in a life after, when we're done with all this here. I'm sure I'm going to see my dad and, you know, my daughter and, I don't know, Abe Lincoln. I'm not sure I get all that, but I know that right here and now I have a little bit more control, and I'm going to enjoy my ride here for as long as that's allowed. So at school, it's like, I don't know what I want to do, but I know I want to have fun, I want to do something. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to be a Catholic priest. My brother's a priest. I thought that would be good for me. You really look into that, it's like, that's not for me. Not that it wasn't all enjoyable, but there's some things I enjoy that they don't do. So I did not pick that. Then I thought, well, you know what I want to do? I might be a counselor, like a guidance counselor or psychologist, and because I like helping people. I think that's good. That would be fun. I'd get to know people. I talked to my advisor about that. He goes, you're going to have to go on to school for sure another 4 years, if not another 6 years. Again, I was a B student. School was, you know, important to me. I probably would have been a better student had I gone to classes. So I was like, I am not going on for another 6 years. So I got my degree in business and marketing. And I thought that's going to be fun. So I was very fortunate. I got a lot of job offers. I had like 9 offers when I got out of school. At that time, and this is before you kids were on the planet, they were looking for people who were B students that had some energy and some leadership skills, and I think I fit that bill. So I went and worked for a large company, and they moved me around. I lived in the Chicago area. I lived out in Southern California, came back to Green Bay. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to start my own company. So I did that, and I started my own company, and we made products. We made those little neck strips that go around your neck when you get your hair cut. I mean, there was only one company in the world making those, and that was Kimberly-Clark. We started making those. And we made millions of those, and we got machines and employees, and then we got end papers. And I want to tell you that I found the most enjoyment not in sales and, you know, paying off our debt and building a factory. The most enjoyment I found was seeing people, our employees, buy their first car, their first truck, buying their first house. I really took comfort in that. And I remember saying to my brother, he and I own the company, and this is awesome. And they've always wanted to go to Las Vegas, and now they had the money to go to Las Vegas because they would save their money and go on this trip that they wanted to do. And it was, the employees we had, it was a lot of packaging and converting work. It wasn't real high-tech people, but I took a great deal of pleasure in seeing their lives become better. Then the job for mayor became available. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to apply for that job. Not the business side of it and the redevelopment side of it, but you know what? I think I could make people's lives better. I believe that. I know. I feel good when that happens. So I got into public work to lift lives. And for those of you who come to our city council meeting, and we have council meetings on the first and third Tuesday, I give an invocation. And I know some people don't like that, but I do that. And every invocation, I remind our city council and our employees that our true purpose here as elected officials is to lift the lives of those who call Green Bay home. And how we do that, there are so many ways to do it. We can do it through having an unbelievable park and recreation department program. We can do that for working in conjunction with Habitat and taking someone who's been living in an apartment into living in not only a home but in a neighborhood. We can do that by putting in some infrastructure so a business can expand, and by expanding they can create jobs. And you go home every night working in the public sector saying, look, I'm making the lives better of people in Green Bay. And it's what I want to do. I know this is what I want to do. And there's not a lot of money in the public sector, nor should there be. If you want the Mercedes and the boat and the cottage, very well. Now, if you want that stuff, you should just, you make a decision. And you can do that in the public sector. You just have to really, really save. But that wasn't as important to me. I mean, when I had our private business, you know, I wanted to have enough money to let my kids go to college wherever they want. I have 3 kids in college, and I wanted to pay off my house and live in a nice house, and I do that. Other than that, I didn't want to work for free either. I think people have to make money. I think people who do things should be rewarded. So in government, you know, I chose to be the mayor, and I ran for mayor, and I got elected in 2003. We have 4-year terms. I ran again, got elected in 2007, again in 2011. And that would let you know that there's another election coming up in 2015. And people say, you know, what's different from 2003 to 2015? And yeah, I read my State of the Cities, and it's not that much different. I want to make a downtown that works for everybody. I think we should have a downtown, whether you're the president of the bank or you're a teller at a bank, you should be able to live down there. And that's why we have affordable housing, and we have some very, very expensive housing. And they're right next to each other. They're within 100 yards of each other. We have downtowns that are good for the millenniums, and they're good for kids. You know, we have a children's museum. I mean, we could have taken that space for the children's museum and said, you know, we're going to make this into a high-end restaurant, or into an entertainment venue, or into a technology center. But we chose to use that land for a children's museum because we think that's going to lift lives for those little kids and for their parents. So as we continue to work in government, and there's planners and engineers, you know, we have 1,000 employees just in the little city of Green Bay, and you know, they're doing a good job. Our firefighters, our police officers, our sanitation engineers. But what they do is they do a job, but what they really, really do is make life better for people in Green Bay. And if they believe that, and I believe that, you know, that they believe it, that we're going to have a greater community here. And, you know, you guys can live anywhere. I mean, oh my God, it's amazing how small this world is. And if we can make Green Bay one of your stops, I mean, statistically, you're going to probably live to be 100 years old. You're going to have 7 different careers. I get that. I just want one of those careers and one of those stops to be Green Bay. I think you can contribute. We are going after a creative class of people. We'd like you to live here. You have good ideas. You're educated. You're going to give back to the community. So unlike the other jobs I had, like in working in owning my own business or working for a large corporation, I get satisfaction out of, like I said, out of lifting lives. And I think government can do that. I think we are a government of the people, you know, for the people. And if you believe that, and you say, look, you know, I'm going to work today to make someone's life better, it takes time. Government is a lot of processes. There's too many processes in government, but when you learn about it like we have firsthand, it works. It doesn't always seem like it works, but government does work. And, you know, I'm getting rewarded for this, and I think the people who live in our community are feeling rewarded. I feel like when I talk to people, they're like, look, I moved here X years ago, or I grew up here, and, you know, I really like what's going on here, here, here. And there's other things we have to do. I mean, we have a lot of work to do, but when we study other communities like a Detroit and what happened there, and some of the challenges that they went through in St. Louis, and in some of these smaller communities, I'm not sensing that here. I'm not afraid of Green Bay. I think people really understand that they've got a mayor and government. They have people who are working in the government to make this a better community for people who call Green Bay home. And I talked about it's important for me to enjoy what I do. And enjoy, and these guys have heard this, but it's an acronym for me, the ENJOY. And when I say I'm going to enjoy something, the E just stands for energy. I am a high energy guy, and I like to put energy into what I do. The N for enjoy is into networking. I love meeting people. You know, I'm here. I'm going to meet some of you after this meeting today. Mayor's Beautification Luncheon. Tonight, we're dedicating a Habitat Home, and we have a Mayor's Neighborhood Leadership Meeting tonight. So I'll meet people, I'll network with people. I want to hear what they're saying, what they're concerned about, and what they think we're doing. The J in joy is the justice that we have to have. And if you cheat someone, that comes back at you in business and your friendships. So just to be just in everything you do. Some people, the J should be for, what would Jesus do? But depending on your religion, just make sure you're just in what you do. The O for enjoy, E-N-J-O, is to be organized. I mean, life goes so fast. I can't believe where I'm at in life at this age. But I get more done, I think, because I'm a little bit more organized. I could be more organized. But I think that's important. And then the Y in enjoy is you've got to take care of you. I mean, to buy yourself a treat for when you do good things, or a new shirt, or just take some time out and sit in your chair and look out the window and say, this is awesome. I'm working for the public sector. I work in government. I believe I'm lifting lives here in Green Bay. I enjoy what I'm doing. It just doesn't get much better than that. Thank you for inviting me to this, and I look forward to your questions.
Hello, everyone. I have to tell you, I hate following the mayor, but I've done it more than once. So. All right, I'm Cheryl Renier-Wigg. I run the neighborhood division for the city of Green Bay. I've been doing that for 27 years this December. How many of you out there are younger than 27? Man, see how I'm really important. I've been there a long time, man. Did you see that? Okay, I just want to tell you about myself. I was born and raised in Green Bay, graduated from East High School. I graduated from UW Oshkosh, or as my senior son there tells me, it's Schloshkosh. I have a major in criminal justice. I have a minor in public administration. And when I was on campus there, I was very involved. I was student legal service affairs director. I was women's affairs director. I was involved in a number of political groups. I did a one-year internship with the housing inspector there. These are all things that got me the job with the city. So I'm telling you guys, just having classes isn't going to do it. You need to get out, you need to get involved, because when we get applications with the city, we have a lot of good students and a lot of good grades, but we look at what have you done outside of your schooling. So first tip for me is get involved. So what does the neighborhood division do? Well, I have a staff of about 22 people, and our job is really to keep neighborhoods healthy and great, because neighborhoods in Green Bay are great. I have 3 different groups of people that I work with. I work with some redevelopment folks. If you see a house coming down in the city of Green Bay, that's probably as a result of what we're doing. We buy properties, we fix them up, we sell them, we rehab them. We do a lot of work with infrastructure. We do, if you drive down, like for example, Monroe, there might be some funding that we put in with that. We improve our parks. We work with federal grant funds to do that kind of stuff. So kind of the nuts and bolts of neighborhoods, we have staff that do that. I also have staff that are housing and zoning inspectors. So Google broken windows theory, and it will talk to you about how it's important that in neighborhoods you fix the small things, because if you have that one broken window, that one broken swing, nobody fixes it. It kind of tells everybody in that neighborhood, just these people don't care here. More things start to happen, you see declines. We believe that is theory, that it's true in Green Bay, so we stay on top of our neighborhoods and we fix those broken windows. So housing, zoning staff go out there, we're complaint driven, and we do a lot of that. I also supervise our community service interns. If you've seen those kids riding around town with the yellow shirts and the black pants, they work a lot with the police department, but they also work with our park staff, open gyms, schools, kind of our ambassadors. These kids want to be police officers, so it's important for us to work with them before they become police officers, because when we hire them, we just swore one in on Monday, a community service intern, they have that all-around encompassing view of the city compared to sometimes just that police view of the city. So they get out and they meet people and they understand what customer service means. The other thing we do is we work with neighborhood associations. In the city of Green Bay, we now have 40 neighborhood associations. We're about 75% covered in the city. So we help form associations, and then once they're formed, we work with those boards, and we work with the neighbors, and then they have their own projects that they work on. Great for the city because they do their own fundraising. They make improvements to the city where basically we just can't afford to do all the special stuff with the city. Beautification types of things just really aren't in our budget all the time. So they help us by making the city better with the work that they do. So why did I get involved in public service? Well, personally, and I don't know if you guys, maybe you are because you're here at this Phoenix talk today, but I'm a fixer. I'm one of these people that if someone says to me, God, you know how long it took me to get that coffee today when I was down at, I go, well, if you move her there and she goes there, and then if someone's working the register, you know, that's just kind of the way my brain works. And a lot of people in public service, I think, are like that. They're problem solvers. They like to fix things. And that's kind of like, that's why I'm involved in public service. I also have this like weird concept that I think it's important that you make the environment around you the best place that you can be. You know, I get joy when I can help you. Like you just come into City Hall and you say to me, oh my God, I don't know where to get a birth certificate. And I'm like, oh, you're in the wrong place. Let me tell you where it is. Got to cross the street, go to the next building. I get satisfaction in being able to help people. And I think a lot of people in public service get that satisfaction. So if you get high on that kind of stuff, public service is the job for you. Neighborhood association work for me is very rewarding. We've got people that maybe they didn't want to get involved in their neighborhood, but they decide to sit on the board. Well, after a while, they say, you know what, I really like this. And they decide to be president of that association. So you see people work their way up, gain confidence. All of a sudden they say, I can run this neighborhood association. I think I can run for city council. We've had at least 4 neighborhood association presidents that are now city council members. Jerry Wisbiski, for example, used to be a neighborhood association president. And then maybe they get crazy and they say, I think I want to be mayor. And then, of course, our mayor used to be the president of the Astor Neighborhood Association. So I used to be president of a neighborhood association. So that is very satisfying to me to know that I'm like cultivating this leadership skill in all these people in the city, you know, and they move up to do greater things. Okay, why is it important to get involved? Okay, this is where the violin music comes in, right? Okay, I've had a lot of health issues over the past 5 years, pretty significant, quite frankly. And one of the things that taught me basically was that you kind of get one shot at this life, right? And you have to ask yourself, are you going to sit in the sidelines and just watch it pass you by? Or are you just going to get into the fire? Because you know what? I'm 50 years old. So, you know, throughout the course of my life, I can look back and say, we never had neighborhood associations here. I drive home from work. I say, you know what? I remember when we formed the Howe Neighborhood Resource Center, and that's still there 20 years later helping kids. I can look at properties that are not there anymore. There's a brand new house that's sitting there, family operated. If you drive down Monroe, you can see a corner across from the downtown shell. We've got those blighted properties out of there. There's going to be a new development. I mean, that is job satisfaction, folks. I mean, I'm not going to be a millionaire in this job, clearly, but that is job satisfaction. You got to be thinking about that, because who wants to go to a job every day in the grind, hating your work? You go to work, you're like, oh, I hate this job, but it pays me a lot of money. No, that's not, don't live your life that way. Find the job that you like. Find something that gives you satisfaction, because that's not just job satisfaction, that's life satisfaction, and that's really important. That's what I've got. On to Dan.
I'm actually put my mic back because I talk with my hands and you're never going to be able to hear me. I'm Italian by nature. I'll use this one up here. Yeah, we're good. Everyone hear me? All right, my name's Dan Lindstrom. I'm a planner with the city planning department. I'll give you a brief overview. I know that the mayor kind of went back to his childhood, so I'm actually going to go back a little bit from when I originally planned. And I first started looking at development. And so my role in public participation and civic duty really comes in development. So I started off playing with Lincoln Logs. And so for me, Lincoln Logs became my starting point. I started my career in school just like here. I'm actually a graduate of the Urban Regional Studies Department here, as well as the Environmental Policy and Planning. So that's where I started. However, if we rewind, I started off with a little bit more architecture. And when I started with architecture, my background started to take a look at, I'm creating a nice, beautiful building. I'm not creating a nice showcase piece. But for me, it didn't quite fit into the right context of what I wanted. And that was having to create a better environment. And so I ended up coming here for Urban Regional Studies to take a look at a whole complete network of a city or of an area. So when I talk today, it's pretty much going to be about development of a city. And we talked about a little bit in previous sessions. I know you guys talked about environment in one of them. So this one is, you have people on this panel really from the city side for development purposes. So I'm going to focus a little bit more on that. So again, graduated this program here, Urban and Regional Studies, with the emphasis in environmental design. So I really focused on the design aspect. A little bit more while I was here, I was actually a member of the swim team, and so that piece will come in a little bit later into my civic duties. I then went off to graduate school. So I had taken my experience that I had learned in my internship, actually with the city of Green Bay, and transferred that into graduate school. While in graduate school, participated in several neighborhood plans throughout Ohio. I went to graduate school at Ohio State. One significant element of my experience that taught me was when we did a neighborhood plan for the Idora neighborhood in Youngstown, Ohio. If you know anything about Youngstown, Ohio, it is a region that was significantly distressed as a result of the change in manufacturing patterns over the past 40 years. And so you're talking of a neighborhood with 70% vacancy rates. And so you take a look at what can happen through there. And actually took those experiences of doing neighborhood work through that process and expanded that into additional roles. I soon became a student association president at Ohio State, and then came back after that and came back to start working for the city of Green Bay. So I'll give you a little bit of background of where I started with the city of Green Bay. I started as a design intern, and then into an engineering intern, and then into a planning intern. So a little bit, a whole slew of physical development.
We like interns.
Yes, yes. And I do like to let Cheryl know that she talks about how many staff that she does supervise. My first internship I applied for was actually under Cheryl's department before she was there. I wasn't hired. I make sure I point that out every time. But again, I didn't go in with the experience. I went in with just an education at that point. So I needed that additional experience. Thankfully, somebody gave me the opportunity, unpaid, but then I was able to move back into it. So a little bit more of my background. I also spent some time in the private sector planning, and that's where we went off into working municipalities as a private sector consultant. Then I also worked in a suburb of Ohio as a research analyst for a sustainability program. So not only is my background in urban design, it's also in sustainability. So that's where my two focuses were. I ended up coming back to the city of Green Bay, and now I spend most of my time in the physical development of Green Bay. So anything from road pattern layout to economic development for business retention and expansion, providing design services for businesses to locate, anything with GIS, anything that relates to more or less the physical shape and feel of it. So that's kind of my background. I've been here for probably about 6 years now total, and I'm looking to stay because Green Bay has kind of been my home. I first started, I grew up in the UP. I came back down here, was here for 4 years, left, and I came back. Why? Because when I was an intern with the city, I definitely saw some opportunities, and we were starting to see some of those improvements that the mayor has been working on for the past 10 years. So now that I'm back here, we're in an exciting time now with the downtown happening, with the corridor plans that were going on. So I'm going to go through a few questions here first. How many of you last year saw emails regarding the University Avenue corridor plan that was kind of going on, and we had some surveys that came out? We got a few of them? A few of them? Okay. So that's one question. The other question is, how many of you live on campus? How many of you commute every day? We got a little bit of each. How many of you spend time in Green Bay in general on a weekly basis? How many of you get off campus and start to explore a little bit more? All right, good. Have you ever noticed you're driving through an area and you think to yourself, I kind of wish this was a different way, or I wish this was shaped differently? You kind of go through that. How many of you wish that there was more services closer to campus? I'm going to probably see every hand raised on that one. So one of the things that we do is we create redevelopment plans or future redevelopment plans to better utilize the existing infrastructure that we have. One of those was the University Avenue corridor plan that we've been working on for the better part of 2.5 years. So I want to let you know that these processes, what we do in the planning department and in a civics environment like this, is we make sure that what we do is based in community participation. So now I'm going to kind of deviate a little bit away from what we're asked to talk about, which is working in the public sector and in the civic environment. But I'm going to deviate a little bit from that and say working is not just being employed in the civic sector. Working is also being active in a civic and being civically engaged in your community. So when we do these projects, we often go out to the public asking for opportunities for what would you like to see in a community and how would you like to see your community change or grow or expand. So it just doesn't happen in a vacuum. Buildings don't just pop up. There's always some sort of public-private partnership that works together. We try to make sure that private partnership is profitable, not only for the business, not only for the city, but also for its residents. And when I say profitable, profitable isn't just dollars. Again, it's that social capital. How are you proud to live in your area? That's what we need to make sure that we're doing. So how do we become that civically engaged, and how do we work in that environment? And for those of you who were at yesterday's talk, Crystal Osmond was here. She's a friend of mine, and we talked back and forth. And one of the ideas that we share constantly is to be civically engaged, you have to almost be selfish, all right? And that is a term that you oftentimes don't equate with being publicly engaged. But when I say that, I mean you have to be selfish and you have to fight for what you want in your city. You have to fight for what you want to see. And if everyone does that, you can come together in a collective environment and work together and have that civic engagement together. But you have to be able to know what you want and then be able to go out and fight for it. Volunteer in boards, participate at public events, and move forward with that. That's how you work in a civic engagement. We want to make sure that in that selfishness, you're also advocating for that higher quality of life that you're looking for. So as you spend time, and we realize that as our business lives increase and our private lives become ever increasingly busy, finding that time to really volunteer and go through that process is where we come together. We spend countless hours investigating in new ways to reach out to the public, whether or not it's through training sessions, whether or not it's through online engagements, whether or not it's through what we consider speed dating to get ideas out there. We do any number of things. We want to make sure that we go through that process. And so my charge to you is you don't have to be employed in the public sector to be civically engaged. My play to you is be engaged in any way that you can, and that's working in the public sector. So I kept my comments a little short here so that we can open it up to some Q&A, but I want to really harp on that point is you don't have to be employed in the public sector to actually work and be civically engaged.
Very good. That's good. 10 minutes. Fine.
Thanks for coming today. We got a hot mic. My name is Jared Spoody, senior on campus. I just want to start out first by saying, Mr. Mayor, it's ironic that you talked about your brother in Sturgeon Bay because he will tell everybody that he runs the city via the one phone conversation a week that he has with you. So I just thought that was ironic.
Priests shouldn't lie.
I guess my question is for all of you, what is sort of your biggest challenge as you go through? I mean, you talk about energy and the attributes that it takes to be successful in the field, but there's obviously challenges that go along with that. So can you just highlight a few of maybe the challenges that you see day to day to being successful in your field?
Well, I can tell you right now, my biggest challenge is apathy, period. You know, if we don't get, part of our goal is we want people to tell us what their needs are. Especially in neighborhoods, I can't fix a house problem if I don't know about it. People will just pine about it and they'll complain about it, but they won't let us know about it so we can fix it. Or they don't like the situation in their neighborhood, but they won't get involved in their neighborhood association. That whole apathy really is the biggest issue for us, is that I need people to get involved and to communicate with us so we know what the issues are.
I think a challenge, and this is getting a little bit easier, but Green Bay was pretty status quo, and everybody was they're okay with change as long as everything stays the same. Mm-hmm. And it was difficult. Some of these projects, the city deck, and I mean you see what's going on down on Broadway, and I just didn't think it was going to be that hard. I didn't. I mean the job from an education standpoint, it's not that hard. The business side comes pretty easy to me, but It's kind of, I don't really want to call it politics. I mean, there's politics by the council, but the people, you know, I mean, we work for them. And to convince someone to make a change and to invest, and there's some risk too, right? I mean, there's risk. You know, we bought that hotel downtown, you know, and now it's going to be a Hampton, but that was risky. And I thought, to me, it wasn't that risky, but for the community, it was. So I just think giving people confidence that we can change, we can be a great city. It's been a little bit more challenging for me than I thought, but it is, nothing's easier, but it's getting easier than it was 12 years ago.
When you asked that question, two things immediately came to mind, and they both just answered them. But I'm going to compound on those just a little bit. And when it comes to apathy in the planning side, and this one almost kind of relates to both of them together, what we deal with in the planning department is, I want to say, a negative view of what's happened over the past 40 years in Green Bay. But obviously, the building of the downtown mall has often left sour grapes in a lot of elderly folks' minds for the past 40 years, and obviously that mall is gone now. And so what we kind of face is I want to say a lack of trust in the planning department, and we're building that back. And you take a look at the amount of work that we're doing in the neighborhoods, in the downtown, in the corridors to build that trust back again. So that's one of the biggest challenges that we face. And then the other challenge when it comes to some of those developments is getting the public to come out and provide that opinion. It is because some of that lack of trust isn't there because of the legacy issues. We're often faced with challenges of trying to get adequate public participation in a lot of the stuff that we do. And I was recently misquoted in a paper stating that typically what we have in our public meetings is aging, gray-haired white people. And that's not representative of what Green Bay is. And so that's the reason why we're spending so much time trying to get out to the public and get other forms of participation, whether or not it's online or Facebook groups, Facebook chats, out to the public in focus group meetings. We're going to businesses and holding focus group meetings there. What we're trying to do is get that public input from the cross section of Green Bay, and that's one of the challenges that we do face.
He was misquoted. He meant to say blue-gray. I'm just kidding. No, we just really, you guys are the future, and if we go to events and the millennials aren't there, it ain't gonna work, right? I mean, we're smart enough to know that. We study demographics as much as we study structural buildings and infrastructure, and you know, but we look at people, and we need you and want you very much to live here, and you have needs on farmers markets, and you want certain types of housing, and if we're going to have a future that we think we're going to have, we have to address your category. You know, there's baby boomers, and there's, I don't know, 4 or 5 different categories, but you're the largest, you're the smartest, and you're the ones we want living here.
Other questions?
What?
Apathy.
Public, we need public engagement.
All right.
Yay! I'm so close together. My question's for Dan, and I was just wondering if you can tell us any current projects you're planning right now in Green Bay, if you're allowed to tell us.
Yeah, there are some that we do sign agreements that we can't tell you, but the ones that we are my biggest one is we're just finishing up the University Avenue corridor plan. And what that entails is a complete redevelopment study for the university to downtown. If you drive down University Avenue, you can tell that there are some either vacant buildings or buildings that are underutilized. One being a big former slaughterhouse, the Packerland packaging facility, former nursery site. So this plan is really getting at several issues of how can we better utilize that infrastructure that's already there, and how do we reutilize those sites so that we don't have development in the green fields, and we leave these sites vacant. And so we're currently, now that we're in the final stages of that plan, we're now currently courting businesses to come in and go into those sites. And so right now we're working with some multifamily developers to increase student housing options off campus, but also other opportunities for higher end housing, continuum care facilities. We're also taking a look at, we took the survey results that were provided by the students here as well as the public, and we're courting some of those retail establishments and as well as restaurant and other facilities that you guys are looking for. And so that's what we're working on right now. That's kind of my biggest one. There are other numerous items going on downtown. We got the 2 brand new apartment buildings that are going up, the Meyer Theater expansion that's going on. I'm sure I'm stealing the mayor's thunder right now, but
And Larson Green, that was going to be a Walmart, you know, that is really moving along at pretty lightning speed. You know, we've got an offer in and we're going back and forth. So it's exciting and we like this development. And we're also right in the middle of, you know, you talk about biggest project. We have our budget that's going on right now that will be approved on Wednesday. And, you know, we spend $100 million to run the city. You know, is that a lot of money? It's $1,000 a person. But, you know, we need to do everything, right? We need to pick up your garbage. We need to keep the police, fire. We need to keep the parks going. We need to keep Dan working in his department on new developments so that we have a new, you know, we want to do $70 million of brand new tax base. Plus we want to retain through Cheryl's department everything we have. I mean, it's, you know, you can maintain a $6 billion tax base, which is about what we have, but we want to grow that next year. And that takes a lot of planning and some money, and then people don't want their taxes to go up. And I understand that. So, you know, we'll get through this in the next week, but you'll be reading about that. There'll be an article tomorrow on the paper, on our budget. It's a good budget, and it will work for the city of Green Bay. But that is, we're always doing development, we're always doing a budget. I mean, it's a big business, you know. Like I said, we got a $6 billion tax base, we have 1,000 employees, our operating costs are about $100 million, and we borrow about $7-8 million a year for projects. And, you know, obviously the big project this year was Monroe, which goes in front of the cathedral, the Da Vinci School. That turned out awesome. We just cut the ribbon on that last week. And, you know, we got Webster Avenue we're working on, and as Dan said, you know, University Avenue is high on our list. We did Velp Avenue and Military last year. And yeah, you got to continue to invest in your cities, but you also got to pay off more debt than you spend, because, and it's like our federal government, and, you know, we'll see what's going to happen now. But, you know, if you look at in Pennsylvania, some of the cities there, the capital, for God's sake, is looking at declaring bankruptcy. Well, they just borrowed too much money and didn't pay off the debt, and it's just like at home. it doesn't work. It's not sustainable. So we got to manage all that, and that's the biggest project we have this week. We'll be getting our budget passed, and it will pass on Wednesday.
I'm curious, when we're talking about citizen engagement, how do you work to get citizens involved in issues for which they don't really care but you think are important? One thing that comes to my mind is a bus system or a transit system that's sort of regional in scope. Right now we've got individual areas that buy in and things like that. You know, not just that issue, but just generally when you have issues that you think are important but people don't really have it on the radar screen, how do you get them involved in looking at those things?
Well, I can speak when we're like working with neighborhood associations. They're required to have an annual meeting every year, and they have to have a quorum at that meeting. So we work with them to make sure that we bring in speakers that will draw. I mean, I always kid everybody, you know, there's nothing like a pedophile moving into the neighborhood to bring them out, right? But of course, we don't want that. So, but like police captains, everybody loves the cops, right? We bring the police captains in, you know, they're speakers. We always have the mayor. Everybody wants to know what's going on in the city. We get the mayor to come to these meetings, and he's a draw. So we try to find out what's happening in the neighborhood. East Shore Drive, Phragmites. How do you get rid of Phragmites? That's a draw. So we kind of work with the neighborhood, I do, to try to find out, you know, what's important to that specific neighborhood.
I think if there's, look, we work for the people of Green Bay, and if there's an issue that we think is important and they don't, maybe it's not that important. On the other hand, there are important issues that, I mean, people are busy. They are. There's a small group of people that are really following us really close. But by and large, I mean, people got jobs, they got kids, they got soccer, they got church, you know, they are too busy. We have a responsibility to educate people on what should be important. And we say to people, look, you know, this city landfills all our garbage. That is not a good idea. We are going to run out. It's expensive. It's not good for the environment, and you know, your kids are going to pay for that if we don't start looking at that. And then there's people that, you know what? I took an environmental science class. I'll come to the meeting, and then we get some people engaged in that. And then we looked at this whole recycling with the blue carts, and you know, that was a process that there were some people that felt important, but we felt it was really important. So when and as Cheryl said, I go out and give a lot of talks during the week, and I'll mention, I was like, look, you guys, these neighborhoods, and you drive through and, oh, you know, the neighborhoods look great. Well, they look great because we have neighborhood associations. So, you know, sometimes we have to educate people on why they need to be involved. But I will say, if we really think it's unbelievably important to have a sister city with Beijing, China, and no businesses want it, and the chamber doesn't want it, and the university doesn't want it, maybe we shouldn't be doing it. Beijing wants it, I'll tell you that. But you know what I mean? We have to vet that, because there's a lot of opportunities out there. But if we educate people, I mean, this is a pretty smart community we have here. We usually get people to get engaged, and sometimes it's only a handful of people. 8, 10 people can, that transit like you're talking about, we put in the budget that downtown loop for transit. I mean, that's being driven by not a lot of people, and that's pretty cool. When I'm not going to call them special interests, these are just people who really care about something, and I think they're going to move the ball on transit this fall. I mean, this in 2015.
I understand that the mayor needs to get moving, so maybe we can give our panelists a round of applause. And if you have extra questions for Dan or Cheryl,
All right.
make your way down there.
I will tell you, I'm going to the Riverside Ballroom. We give out the Mayor's Beautification Awards. So it's important, and as you go through life and raising kids or whatever you're going to do, you got to stop and smell the roses once in a while. I'm not great at that, but we give out awards today to people who've made investments in their properties because we want to recognize beauty. We're not big on just, you know, if you fix up your house and put, you know, build a garage with aluminum, and you know, we would rather some bricks, some detailing, and there's some businesses that went the extra mile, did some decorative lighting, and they're going to be recognized at noon today at this lunch. And it's us, the city of Green Bay, which is you, but it's all of us thanking them for spending that little extra money, working with people like Dan and Cheryl to really make their buildings very special. And you'll see those in the paper tomorrow. So that is the lunch that we're off to. And I just want to, you know, we are, I say this all the time, but you need to hear it as students. I've worked in other places. We have some great, dedicated, passionate employees in the city of Green Bay, 2 of them sitting up here with me. And if you're interested in working for the government, and that's such a bad word, if you're interested in the public sector, if you're interested in lifting lives and being creative and really building a legacy, you need to spend some time in the public sector. It's a wonderful, rewarding career, and I hope to see all of you in the city of Green Bay or in another municipality along the way. All right, thank you.
And no neighborhood association on campus. If you want to form one, come talk to me. Nobody.
That concludes our Phoenix Talks. Thank you very much. Thanks to our panelists.